All right, so we will start stage right with Mr. Hogan here on the first question. As a way of introducing yourselves, can each of you share with us what your policy priorities are for District 7 and what experience and or skills that you bring to the table that will make you effective in addressing those priorities?
Well, thank you everyone for having us out here tonight. Is it working now? Yes. Try it again. Thanks for having us out here tonight. Great crowd. Nice community involvement. My name is Joseph Hogan. I'm running for City Council District 7 now, which was originally 14. As you heard about the change, so it's a much different district than it used to be. I'm excited about it. Downtown, all the way to Ortega, it's a very unique and exciting district. I grew up here, grew up in Jacksonville. My family's had a long history here in Jacksonville. I actually met my wife in second grade at John Stockton Elementary, where we currently have 2 of our kids there right now. So I've got 2 in public school at John Stockton and 1 at La Villa. So they're all going to be in the same district, and I'm working to be their councilman. As far as what my priorities are, when it comes to government, I'm very conservative when it comes to what I think the role of government is. Infrastructure, public safety, parks and recreation. I think that's the top 3 things that a city should do. And if they do those things well, you're going to see a thriving and great city. So as far as things I want to see to bring to the table, infrastructure is going to be probably number 1, followed by public safety, and then parks and recreation. What skills do I have to bring to the table in that regards? I'm a builder, I'm a contractor, so I know development, I know infrastructure pretty well, and that's one of the things that I'm going to be really focused on when it comes to District 7 specifically. Look forward to answering the rest of the questions tonight. Thanks for having us here.
Mr. Phillips?
Good evening, folks. So my name is John Phillips. I moved here in 2001 for a job interview. Look at that. Yes. For a job interview. And I sat at the place formerly known as The Landing. I don't know if all of you are familiar with that place. And I read the Folio Weekly and said, man, this is a great town with a river and it's beautiful. And, 10 years later, I was able to start my own law firm out of a church building, month by month, office by office, until we could build it. And then represented families like Jordan Davis's family and 131 kids who were victims of mental abuse, and worked my way as a lawyer that started off representing businesses and wound up representing people dealing with individual issues. And as I did that, I got more and more cases related to this thing like government corruption and this guy King Sturman. And I sat there at the end of the year and said, where are we when Ben Frazier can overstay his welcome and wound up arrested? Where are we when King Sturman can go anywhere he wants despite being told we can't have civilian review boards? Where are we when many JSO officers, that despite the concept of community policing, go out to Nocatee to spend their evenings? Where are we? Where are we when the mayor can mean tweet veterans, and where are we when people of Murray Hill can only talk to their representatives when they're running for office? Where are we? Well, we're Jacksonville. And we can do better. We can be more civil. We can work together better and more effectively. I've got this crazy concept about actually bringing compassion back to government leadership. We can do it. If I've built a law firm, if I've actually wound up being the guy that bought Folio, a couple of years ago, my wife's taking it over. But we can do more with some compassion and action in this town, related to crime, related to infrastructure. Certainly, we flooded out in Irma, and bring back our neighborhoods and keep them important. The New 7 is very diverse, and so Ortega's problems are different than Murray Hill's problems are different than the East Side. And I promise each and every one of you, and I'm trying to look you all in the eye right now, my door will always be open, my phone will always be open, and my DMs will always be open.
Mr. Peluso.
Well, thank you all so much for coming this evening. Thank you to Stacy and Brock and Fisher Brewery for allowing us to come here tonight, and for Murray Hill Preservation Association for hosting this. I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jimmy Beluso, and I'm also running for District 7. I'm a Democrat. I'm probably going to talk about some of my experience and why it does kick into what my priorities are. But I'm a naval officer. I served for 8 years on active duty, and I'm currently now a reservist. In that capacity, I led sailors, I had divisions in which I was very much in charge of, and then I also really kind of worked on policy and pushing out new policy initiatives. I was very successful at it during my time in service. Currently now, I work at Vice Art Credit Union, not an IT, in government affairs. In government affairs, so I'm a registered lobbyist both at the state and city level. So I'm really familiar with what our city and our state, folks in Tallahassee are kind of working on. I think it's going to be vital for those of us who are looking for a council member who wants to start on day one and already have an idea of what they want to do. So my 3 major priorities are neighborhoods, infrastructure, and parks. That's what you're going to hear from me all the time. And by the way, there are several subsections in between all 3 of those things. And there's a reason for that. Because we've got a lot of needs, and those all kind of tie in some of the ones that really believe are important ones. So when it comes to our neighborhoods, as mentioned tonight, we have the oldest neighborhoods in all of Jacksonville. We have neighborhoods that made up the city of Jacksonville before consolidation. People have been paying taxes in them for over 150 years, and yet in many cases, they're not receiving any of the tax dollars that they deserve. We've got neighborhoods where people feel like the redlining of the 1960s is still exactly the way it should be, right? And that's completely inappropriate. We have I-95 cutting our neighborhoods apart, and here we are now in a district where we have some of the wealthiest neighborhoods and some of the poorest ones. We need to make sure we're building a cohesive city and a cohesive District 7. When it comes to infrastructure, that ties directly into it. We're going to talk a lot about infrastructure tonight, I imagine. But we have parts of this district and parts of Murray Hill even where there's no curbs, where there's no lighting, where there's poor pedestrian and bike areas, right? There should be a city that's healthy and livable and walkable, and we don't even have that here in Murray Hill. It's supposed to be one of the up-and-coming neighborhoods. We don't have sidewalks in many areas. These are needs that should have been met decades ago, let alone the 21st century. And then lastly, we have parks. There's no better way to prevent crime than good parks that have excellent programming. And we'll be talking about that more because I think we got more questions on that. But the point is, we have parks. We're the largest park network in the United States. And yet, we still have areas where there's enormous amounts of trash, where there's needles you can find, where there's, again, no programming, where kids need to travel miles and miles and miles to get to a athletic association where they can actually play the sport that they want. We need to change that. We'll talk about that more tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you. Ms. Pryor.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Fishware. This is a fantastic place.
I said, oh, maybe I have to hold it straight.
I'm a single, so I'm used to holding it out, so I apologize for that. So, my name is Kim Pryor, and I am running for City Council District 7. I am a Democrat, and I want to be your council member. I want to represent you. I have come to I moved to Jacksonville. I'm sorry. I came to Jacksonville. How about?
There we go. Come forward.
I came to Jacksonville February 1st of 1993 for a job. I worked 28 years for a mortgage software company right here in District 7, down on Riverside Avenue. My daughter was born here. She was raised here. She graduated from Douglas Anderson School of the Arts. This is a fantastic community here. My whole priority is you. It's not about me. It is about you. What do you need? What do you want? What have you seen that you haven't gotten in the time that you've been here? Let's talk. Because you know what? It's not about somebody sitting up at City Hall just to be sitting at City Hall. It is about somebody that's going to be out in the community, somebody who really cares about the people. I have served this community since 2015 on the Urban Core CPAC. I've served 3 years as vice chair, and I just finished my 3rd year as chair. I've also served on the board of directors of the Jacksonville Children's Chorus, where my daughter was also a member. And I am a member of a very small nonprofit that thankfully we're not really needed anymore. It's called Preservation SOS, but we were formed in 2010 to stop the demolition of our historic structures in Springfield. We worked very hard, and thankfully that has slowed down tremendously. But I know you folks here in Murray Hill, you're very proud of your historic structures as well, so we don't need any more demolition like that. So what my priorities, if you will, are similar to the candidates you've already heard tonight. Quality of life, bicycle and pedestrian safety, street lights, sidewalks, things of that nature. We need to fix our infrastructure. And we also need to be transparent. That is just so important, because I believe that, me personally, I have lost faith in the people sitting at City Hall, because there are things that are being done in the shadows instead of out in the open. We have sunshine law here. It is supposed to be out in the open. There's not supposed to be anything done behind closed doors. So when I'm elected to this position, I can promise you that I will be open, available, responsive to your needs. And let's work together. And my name again is Kim Pryor, and my priority is you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Can everybody hear okay without the microphone up front? You guys back there, can you hear all right? Okay. Well, candidates use the microphone at peril. It might be a distraction. I'm going to give this one to Mr. Phillips first. And we took some online questions before the event from members of the community. And so the first one of those we have comes with a statement and a question. So the statement is, we have had promises of a new signature building at Roosevelt and Edgewood that never got built, underpass lights and road improvements that never started, and even 20 years ago the city created a Murray Hill Town Center vision plan that never went beyond the advisory capacity. What will you do to ensure ideas supported by neighborhoods are acted upon by the city and not just lost or forgotten?
Folks, this is a city hall problem, right? We understand that if we continue to elect the same people, we're going to get the same results or lack of results. So under my District 7 term, I'm going to kind of run it like I ran my law firm. You're each my clients. Jacksonville is the most important case of my life. I don't have to do this. I'm not beholden to anyone. And of everybody running, save a few people in this entire election cycle, I will speak truth to power. I'm a little bit known for it, in fact. Probably too much so. But it's these ideas that are lost and forgotten. Because, again, people only listen when they need a favor from you, right? They need your vote. One of the reasons I'm getting into this race, or I'm in this race, isn't just about curbs. It's about curbing crime and curbing violence. It's over 1,000 murders in 7 years, when we were told by Mayor Curry that, no, that's a priority. So yeah, we've got to deal with protecting Murray Hill. It's beautiful. We've got to get together, and again, I'm going to get to the last question, which we may not get to. What does it look like under you, so to speak? It's more of these. Y'all come, let me have it. We'll do this quarterly. We'll do this more if we need to, because as a trial lawyer, as a person that builds cases, I build them off of witness testimony and evidence. And I'm not up here telling you that I know all the solutions. I don't. I've never run for office before, and I believe all three of these folks have. I'm a novice when it comes to this. But what I'm not a novice to is listening and applying pressure, speaking truth to power, finding allies, working with people that I don't always agree with. I've settled over 10,000 cases in my life. Some of them took a jury. Some of them took appellate court. One. But it's It's coming together and making sure the plans that you all have, the plans for your children, come to fruition.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Mr. Paluso?
Well, I love that this was started off with the, was it the Murray Hill Town Center Vision Plan? Jacksonville loves their plans, don't they? They love their workshops, they love their committees. You could probably go in the library and find a million damn plans that the next administration doesn't even look at. And one of the reasons why is because we don't have political courage up in City Hall. We don't have individuals that actually take those plans seriously and actually work towards them, right? We have these plans and they're ignored time and time and time again. So we need a council member who's actually going to read these plans and actually bring action to the neighborhoods that these plans are supposed to be executed in. There's no execution. So as someone who's worked in policy, who's worked in government, I can tell you right now, when you look at the CIP budget, for those who don't know what that is, that's the capital improvement plan budget. That's where the majority of the funds go for the parks and road projects and the big things that actually, we all kind of clamor over. On July 1, when one of us takes office, we immediately need to work on the budget, and it needs to be passed by September. So we don't want to have novices in there coming in not knowing how to get Murray Hill exactly what it needs. There's a ton of needs in this area, some of which are in the CIP budget in later years. If we have somebody who knows what they're doing, they can push it up to earlier years. That's what I'm hoping to do as your next city council member. Now, when we talk about development in areas like Murray Hill, and obviously the district is larger than that, we have a lot of commercial corridors. One of my goals and hopes is to bring to Murray Hill and to other parts of the district what downtown has, which is a special overlay where they can use tax abatements to incentivize developers to do things basically in the downtown area. It's called a REV grant. And basically, it's the city using a tax abatement to incentivize a developer to come in and build something that they want. So if we can go into certain areas like this commercial corridor and say, hey, look, we'll put in this REV grant if you build a grocer, if you build mixed use, if you do something that's actually needed in the community. Not only will that be beneficial, obviously, for all of us here who want to use that grocer and everything else, but it's going to be better for future residents coming in. It will entice people to move here, and it will show, hey, we're actually finally seeing these plans come to action. So, I'm someone who knows how to work with folks, to work with developers, to work with residents, and to make sure that we get these things off the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Paluso. Ms. Pryor? Let's see if the microphone's a little more friendly this time.
Hope so. Okay, here we go.
My first question back to you is, how long ago was this Murray Hill Town Center Vision Plan created? And is it still viable today? Is it still something that the residents of this community want? I don't know. But when you have a city council member that is open and responsive and wants to have a dialogue with you, like myself, let's sit down and let's talk about it. I can sit up here and say that, yes, I'm going to fight to get this plan pushed through for you. But again, I don't know yet if it's still something that you want. And so this leads back into the communication, the open door policy, my promise of having town hall meetings, regular town hall meetings. If you call me, you'll get a call back. If you email me, you will get a response. It's all about a partnership. Again, people at City Hall shouldn't just be sitting up there and look pretty. It takes work, and it takes collaboration with the community members. Now, I'll just go very quickly into something that what I did for a living was design mortgage software. Okay? So there's federal regulations and state regulations and all sorts of things involved with doing that. We have clients that are, I don't want to do that. I want to do it this way. I want to do it that way. So one of the things that I had to do was talk with them, find out what their requirements were, negotiate with them negotiate with them. What is the best for you? What is the best thing for you? How do we work together to get to the end result of the problem that we're trying to solve? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do, is solve whatever problems are facing us today. And so I am very good at that, and I hope that you will give me an opportunity to prove that to you by electing me in March. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fryer. Mr. Hogan, you want to try that microphone? You feeling ready? All right.
You know, this is actually an interesting question because I'm sitting here thinking about it. I think we could all point to something in our city that we think was just a terrible idea, it was a boondoggle, or we could point to things that have done very well. So I think if you look at it, you go, throughout the course of Jacksonville, whether it's in the mayor's office or the city council, we've had great leaders. We've had ho-hum leaders, we've had really bad leaders. I'm kind of old school, and maybe I'm a little bit naive, but I think government should be relatively boring. I mean, I think the key functions of government are infrastructure, public safety, and parks and recreation. To do those things right, it shouldn't take a new vision every 3 years, or you get a new councilman every 4 years, a new mayor, and things are just constantly going back and forth, changing directions every so often. I think it makes total sense to have a comprehensive plan of an infrastructure needs, and you have priorities, you list them in place, and your council members only have a job at that point is to just kind of constantly manage those priorities. You get feedback from the community, you're in touch, you're able to shift those priorities as they come down. But we should have a budget that has mandatory spending every year as it relates to infrastructure, public safety, and parks and recreation. Those things should continue to improve from one council member to the next, from one mayoral administrator to the next. I think we have too much of this every 4 years, 8 years. We have a different mayor in place, like we're going to have now, and they change it. Mayor Curtis had different ideas than Al Brown had, than Mayor Payton had, and who knows what we're going to get in a couple months. So what my task would be, I think we create a plan that says, look, over the next 20 years, 30 years, we have these projects, these priorities in place. Let's set funding, mandatory spending in place to attack each one of these priorities and go for it that way.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. All right, Mr. Caluso, we're going to let you have the first crack at this one since you brought up parks. Jacksonville is known for having one of the biggest urban park systems in the nation, yet still aspires to be one of the best. Though Jacksonville is the largest city by area in the contiguous United States and the 12th largest by population in the nation, the Trust for Public Land has ranked Jacksonville as the 81st best park system. How will you elevate our local parks?
That's a great question. Obviously, something we've all sort of talked about tonight is parks. I first want to give a plug. On Wednesday at 5 p.m., GIA is doing like the Riverfront Parks symposium at the library. Where is it? Yeah, it's at the main library downtown. So please, all of you, go and attend that, especially if you care about our public parks, especially those right on the river, which I very much do. I was on Melissa Ross a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that I mentioned then is how disappointing it is that we need to have a nonprofit like Riverfront Parks now advocate for something that our city should have been doing this entire time, right? One of my biggest concerns in Jacksonville, especially when it comes to our parks and a few other things, is we don't have a dedicated funding source. For the city that has the largest park network in the United States, we have no dedicated funding source. We have to go through the general fund every single time, and if you know anything about our government and the city of Jacksonville for the past 30, 40 years, we're not exactly big on, adding more full-time employees or adding more money to the budget, especially when it comes to needs such as this. And it very much is a need. As I mentioned earlier tonight, there's no better crime prevention method than excellent park networks. Something for our kids to do when they get out of school, something for our kids to do during the summertime. I was walking in neighborhoods over by EWU, College Gardens, and we found out there was a pool that wasn't open throughout the summer. And the parents were like, well, what's the point of having this pool if it's not going to be available? Well, that's the Parks Department that should be running that. So when you have those obvious things that your government's not doing, you have to question why. And you have to question where the priorities are. For me, it's very much making sure that we have an environment for our kids and for our families where they go into parks that are safe, that are well lit, that are well maintained, and that are well funded. And that's one of the things that I'm really going to push when I'm up in city council. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Paluso. Ms. Pryor?
Is it going to work?
All bets are off.
So, I'm already doing this work.
For the community.
It's not me, right? It is going out, right? Okay. I'm already doing this work for the community. As part of the CPAC, we have members that go and take a look at the parks and bring to the attention of the city when parks need repair work done. I'm starting to get a complex. But anyway, with CPAC, we've done some of that work already, and I've already made some relationships with people here in our district. I had a woman reach out to me last week and a half or so ago and ask for some help with a park over at Johnson Park over in Brooklyn. And it's a park that the seniors really use quite a bit. It's associated with the little senior center that's there. And the park, the gates were locked and chain closed for no reason. Well, she calls, can you come and help? Absolutely. I will go by and take a look. I went at night, and sure enough, it was chained shut. But you could get in on the west side of the park, but the steps were so steep I had difficulty maneuvering them. So I took photographs. I sent an email to the director of the Parks Department. He responded immediately. I went out the next day and met this community member out of the park, and parks were there. They weren't too happy with me. But you know what? Because I called them out and said, look, we need to do the right thing here. We need to open up these parks. We need to make them accessible to the people who want to use them. There's no reason to have them locked up. So Daryl came out and spoke a little bit more. We got a plan in place. I'm expecting to get some preliminary drawings by the end of February on what they're going to do with that park and how they're going to refurbish it. So that kind of work is already being done. But you gotta have somebody sitting at City Hall that's willing to fight for the funding. And that's me, because I absolutely will fight for the funding that's necessary to do the things that the citizens of this district deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Mr. Hogan? Just keep that one with you.
You want me to keep that one?
Keep that one with you. That seems to be working on that on the table.
So, Jacksonville is unique. As your question indicates, Jacksonville is huge. As far as landmass goes, you've got one of the largest cities in the country by landmass. So having parks throughout the city to maintain and keep up and top notch is difficult. I think just within stones of my house, I can think of probably 4 or 5 parks that are in my area. They're not well lit. They have trash in all the time. So I think some of the easy things to do are to just get lights in there and get, Parks and Rec to go through and clean places up. One of the things I'd like to see, we've got 14 districts in Jacksonville. 14 council members, 5 at large. You take 14 districts. I think every district at least should have one signature park, whether that's a recreational field for kids to get involved in, or some type of central park downtown. That's going to be one of the things that I would push for, at least in District 7, that we have one park in District 7 that's District 7's park. Obviously, I'm not saying get rid of all the others, I want to keep them all. We have expanded, we have clean them up, make them nice for everybody to use. I think when you've got I use the one over here all the time for playing baseball. It's fun to see families out there enjoying the facilities, but I think we could do a much better job of just the general maintenance of cleaning those things up and making them more accessible for families.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Mr. Phillips?
Thank you. Thank you. All right, read this.
We've lost control. We've lost control. We're
It's
halfway
all
through.
good. The question is directed to a study called the Trust for Public Land. Okay, Trust. Trust is the word that I'm pulling out of this. And that goes back to who is spending your money. What trades are being made for the spending of your money? You know, there's 19 votes on city council. So we can sit up here and be like, we're going to do this. But there's sausage making, folks, that has to happen that's been real gross in this town. And I'll say this related to sausage making. I will not be receiving votes or an endorsement by Brian Hughes, Liddy Curry, and the self-proclaimed Mississippi Mafia. You can applaud that for sure. And I think anybody up here, save our soul Republicans, should pronounce that type of administration that bullies their way through this. You know, and I can't bring up parks without bringing up the lack of votes on monuments, folks. We can't even get a vote. We're a town with two anti-Semitism press conferences and two MLK breakfasts. Like, the sausage is messed up in this city, and we need somebody that's going to stand up and you know, try to fix it and go back into the back rooms and say, guys, you know, let's have a little shade meeting on this because this ain't right. Related to parks and infrastructure, I got a call, actually it was a Facebook message, that there had been a problem for 4 days. I don't know if my friend Reggie Gaffney Jr. is aware of the new 7 that he's now in, but I messaged him and said, hey, we got a problem. And he's like, this is the person in public safety, get with them, and we had that on within 4 hours. Took 4 days. All we have to do is know about problems like that and we can fix them. And that is a safety issue. I walked the parks in Murray Hill the next day. There was a knife in a public park that we cleaned up. This community does such a good job policing itself and cleaning itself. Like, it's amazing, but you have to have help, and that requires confidence in your government, which we need to restore. And to the point, there's no better crime prevention than parks. Yes, there is. There's a lot. Community policing, accountability at JSO, empowering groups like Mad Dads instead of whatever pure violence was. There's a lot more that we can do, but parks and having a safe place for my kids and your kids to play is absolutely fundamentally important, and that requires a little, you know, prodding back in City Hall to say, hey folks, we gotta do this.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. All right, Ms. Pryor, now that he's got you a working microphone, we're going to let you go first on this one. And I don't mean to be rude, but I'm going to talk this way so they can hear me, so it's on mic. The current city council and mayoral administration have made fully funding the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office budget a top priority, yet crime continues to be an issue. What will be your approach to addressing safety concerns in District 7?
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. We're continuing to put a ton of money into the JSO budget. Should we continue? I think that personally, we need to fund our police. They do need to, we need to pay our officers, but what we need also is to maybe take some of that money and direct it in a little different path. What we have right now seems to be reactionary. What I'm proposing is that we be a little proactive. We boost the funding to our kids' programs. We boost the funding for those parents who may need help with daycare or housing, things of that nature. You know, none of us intend to become a criminal and have to deal with JSO. I know I don't. I don't want to have to deal with that. But unfortunately, a lot of the kids in the city are in a situation where they don't have maybe good role models, where there's no father present. And mom's a single mom, so she's got to be working. And so the 12-year-old is having to take care of the 9-year-old and the 7 and the 5-year-old. As kids, raising kids. As a community, we have an obligation to help those people who are struggling. And if they get the direction and the mentoring, then perhaps they'll have a better shot at not having to have an interaction with JSO that's negative. That's where I'm going to leave it at that for right now. But I think our kids are so very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Mr. Hogan, same question to you.
I'll give it a shot with this mic. This is a tough one. I mean, I think if it was just a funding issue, then it would just be an easy and obvious answer. So let's give them another $100 million in crimes to do that. I don't think there's a dollar amount that you can give the police department that has a direct effect on crime. I have high respect for our men and women in law enforcement. They do the dirty work that we don't want to do. They go to crime scenes and things that change their lives in a manner which we probably don't fully realize sometimes. I appreciate them. We need them. They do a great job. I think the best way that we can help them and maybe lower the burden of almost $500 million a year that our city spends on JSO is community involvement. How do we get the community involved in these kids' lives to make a difference? I look at my kids' school as an example. They're one of the top schools in the city, public school. Why? They don't get more funding than anybody else, so it's not a matter of dollars. So what's the difference? If you ask me, I think it's community involvement. You go to the school, the parents are there, the grandparents are there. People move to the neighborhood because they want to be in that school. So how do you get the community involved? I think one of the best ways to do it is to have leaders in place. Because I think if you go around town, it's pretty easy to find people that want to be involved. You can go to churches, you can go to different organizations. They want to be involved. I think the easiest way to do that is to have leaders in place that can say, let's connect these people with places where there are needs. Let's find people that want to help and give them an easy route to being involved in their community. I think if you do that, you're going to see crime drop down. And I long for the day when we can have a reduced JSO budget because we don't need them. Not because we're defunding them for unknown reasons, but just because we don't need as many officers as we used to.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Mr. Phillips?
Thank you. Going straight to this.
Use them both.
I got another sausage, folks. Crimes, the budget's going to get worse, not better. We have a lot of officers going to St. Johns County. We're recruiting against other municipalities that are offering, and we can get into pensions, but not in 3 minutes. And so this is a monster that's going to be on our back, regardless. Certainly, there's more that can be done with it. As the person that goes into living rooms and speaks eye to eye with people who have lost their children, this is my number one deal, right? We can save a life one by one by modifying police, by encouraging community policing. Like I would just adopt pretty much some of the stuff that Keisha Burton said, who I've been working with on PAL projects for a decade. There's so much more that can be done, but instead, what are we doing? We don't care about criminal justice reform. Oh, let's not talk about that. Let's enact more panhandling laws so that we can move homeless people around. That's unconstitutional, folks. That's unconstitutional. Let's police books. Yeah, let's arrest teachers if they have a book in a library. Let's police what private choices people make about their bodies. So in this Republican state, we're supposed to be about less government. We seem to be doing a lot more policing. So crime and safety is the number one thing that I want to deal with, from public records, just all the stuff, like everything. Like I have public records requests I did 2 months ago on Kent Sturman that are still being denied. So there's so much. As far as community involvement, I will agree with Mr. Hogan on that. But our kids go to the same school, and Stockton and the schools on the east side are not the same. And it's not the parents' fault. And that's our fault. We are letting those neighborhoods down. And I can't compare my 3 kids to the 3 kids that are hungry and their parents can't pay rent, and all of the things that are going on in those homes, because we owe them a better Jacksonville, because all of that comes back to development, how people feel safe here, how people love here, how people can make Jacksonville the town that I fell in love with back in 2001. They deserve the exact same opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Mr. Caluso.
I've gotten pretty lucky with this one. So I actually couldn't agree more with a lot of what John just said. So Keisha Burton is someone who I also supported the sheriff's role. She's somebody who really should be our sheriff right now. It's a shame that she isn't. And her advocacy for community policing is one of the reasons why I and so many others, really across the spectrum, the political spectrum, were so supportive of her campaign. Right? I was knocking on doors in Grant Park a couple days ago, and I knocked into a few people, and they said, "Hey, where are you from?" I said, "Oh, I'm from Riverside." And they said, "Okay, we don't see a lot of folks like you here." I said, "Oh, okay, well, who comes around here?" And they said, this is just our neighborhood. Are you sure you're supposed to be here?" And when you hear things like that, it's evident that we don't have police officers walking around, actually meeting individuals in their homes and making themselves known to the public. When people are afraid to call the police, that is a major problem, right? That is a huge problem in this city, and something that we must address in the years to come. We're not going to see crime go down until we start seeing real trust in communities. But we also need political leaders to be a major part of it. Who I almost said. Darn it. One of the things that I do see happening in the city that I really want to take notice of is that MHRC, Mental Health Resource Center, is working with JSO right now to make sure that there is a mental health professional working in the streets to ensure that when there's a call that JSO officer has to go to that may involve someone with a mental health issue, that someone is there on hand to help assist with that, so that we're de-escalating situations. We all know that policing in this country has a major problem when it comes to de-escalation, and we need to make sure that any new budget that pops up has a lot of training involved in it. And I think needs to have more mental health professionals involved. That's something that's just a no-brainer. So, and to the point that I made earlier about parks and how it's a great crime prevention method, they really are, right? And it's more than just the park, it's programming at the park. It's making sure that we have athletic associations that can do different sporting events there for kids all across the year. During the summer, we need to make sure kids have something to do. There should be a summer jobs program sponsored by the city of Jacksonville. I spoke to a number of people that said back in the 80s that was a very normal thing, and we had much lower crime rates back then. I'm advocating for, similar to what I said at Parks, I would love to see a dedicated funding source for the Kids Hope Alliance, which helps do programs like the Jacksonville Journey program, which has been completely underfunded and has not been working in the way that it's supposed to. We're allowing too many nonprofits to be the ones to guide a program that the city of Jacksonville should be guiding. If we were to provide actual direct funding through, I'm saying it now, a millage rate increase of some kind, then we will have something that can go to Parks, and then another park that can go to the Kids Hope Alliance, what used to be called the Children's Commission. These are the things that we can do this year that will impact this city for decades to come, and I promise it will reduce crime. We just need city council members up there that are going to push for common sense measures and actually hold people accountable. Thank you.
All right, this one's going to go to Mr. Hogan to start us off, and this is another community question. And we wouldn't be in Murray Hill without a question about storage units. So, would the candidates lead an effort to pass zoning laws or reform ones that regulate storage units to not be built on prime real estate? This issue is being brought up again because the South Bank is about to put more fancy units in a district that should be for living and entertainment. Mr. Hogan, we'll start with you.
Does anybody know what storage unit nearby? All right, this is a tough one because I look at this like again. I'm a conservative-minded individual. I believe in the rights of the individual to go out and pursue their own happiness. What does that mean? It means something different for everybody. I think the city's got to be smart in how they approach these things when it comes to zoning. I think Murray Hill did a good job of trying to fight the storage unit next door. I think it doesn't look like a traditional storage unit in the sense of what people were typically envisioning. So I think y'all's fighting back was probably the only reason that it looks like it does now. I'm sure that you probably would have not wanted it to begin with, but I think you have to have a council member or administration that you can go to and have them fight for you on those things. I'm the guy that would listen to you. I want the community to be proud of their area, but I also want to protect the rights of the individual to be able to do something a project that they want to do. So when it comes to building and development, I think the city's got to have a plan in place for what belongs where. And I think that if you have the community involvement, you have a council member or mayoral administration that will listen to the community and then work with the builders and developers to get the projects done in a manner which everybody can somewhat agree to, I think that's the best approach. I don't think we're always going to have situations where everybody is in agreement. And that was probably a case in point here in Murray Hill. Yeah, that's what I got.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Mr. Phillips.
No one,
No one ever said, I moved to Jacksonville because of this beautiful storage unit, and I sat on top of it, and I had a beer, and I thought, this is the town for me, right? But on the same token, people tend to have too much stuff. There's a whole Jerry Seinfeld skit about stuff. And there's a balance with any of this stuff, but it's certainly not, let's plop another storage unit right in the middle of where it shouldn't be. And in Jacksonville's zoning, my goodness, like you want to talk about giving a lawyer a headache. And a lot coming out of Jacksonville, you want to talk about giving a lawyer a headache. Like the use of commas that aren't commas. Like there's just so much there. But again, I pull words and I've addressed storage unit. We need a plan related to zoning that is reasonable and focuses on the last two words of the sentence, living and entertainment. Again, I go back to my story of moving here in 2001, and then there was this thing, and I know I said it earlier, called the landing. And I'm going back to it to say, it's gone. And we've got developers coming in to do, more projects, but the Lighthouse Grill, gone. The beautiful River City Brewing, gone, and that somehow isn't going to be what they thought it was. City Hall is getting this wrong. And Curry and his administration have knocked down too many buildings without a thoughtful plan on doing more and building more, because the me that's visiting to go on a job interview, it isn't going to be as enamored, relatively speaking, by the park. And we need more parks. And I'm not saying that we don't, but we've got to have absolute planning and accountability for decisions that are made, particularly related to zoning, demolition, and rebuilding, that we're not all apartment complex high-rises throughout Jacksonville.
did we lose the?
Would you prefer that?
Doing well with it.
All right.
Testing. The time started. All right. So when it comes to obviously the eyesore that you see while crossing over the railroad. I'm sorry. Get that out of the way. As somebody who lives in the Riverside Avondale area, we have a overlay that protects us from things like this. Springfield has a similar overlay that protects things, or protects neighborhoods from things like this. If you are living in a historical neighborhood where you believe that the some of the buildings need to maintain a certain type of character, and you believe that there shouldn't be certain types of uses. I mean, we should be talking about potentially making Murray Hill providing some kind of overlay. It doesn't need to be as stringent as maybe Springfield or Riverside Avenue, but these are questions and these are solutions that we should be talking about. And frankly, that's something that if the council member from 7, hears from their community and they're told, yeah, give us one of those overlays, it's probably going to get approved by the rest of the council. Because if you live in the beaches, if you live in the west side, you're not necessarily going to care about it. They're going to say, okay, is that what the community wants? And great, sure, we'll trust the guy or gal from 7, and we'll make that work. Zoning is meant to be it's meant to be reflective of the neighborhood and the community and what the future uses are going to be in that area, right? Zoning is the nerdiest, lamest, most boring thing in government that is arguably one of the most important things. So you need to make sure we have someone up in City Hall who understands what the zoning requirements are, what the future land use is going to be. And as somebody who's worked at the St. Johns River Water Management District, that was my first job when I got out of the Navy, we were very big in permitting. I was very involved with zoning and land use stuff. Again, it's boring, it's dry, I'm already yelling thinking about it, but it's really important when it comes to the future development of a neighborhood and a city. And that's the kind of leadership we need in city council. And if you want an overlay, let's talk about it. Thanks.
Carter, you sure you want to try that handout? All right.
That thing's had enough chances. Would the candidates lead an effort to pass zoning laws or reform current ones that regulate storage units to not be built on prime real estate? That's what the community wants?
Yes.
Short and sweet. All right. Mr. Phillips, we'll get you go first on this one. Pick your poison. According to the Florida Housing Coalition, 1 in 3 Jacksonville households are cost burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their annual income towards housing. This has been especially evident in District 7, where the cost of housing has increased dramatically in the past decade. As a city council member, how will you help Jacksonville residents in need of affordable and/or attainable housing?
Thank you. One can both manage Murray Hill's sidewalks and safety and deal with the east side, the north side, other people within Murray Hill that have housing insecurity. We have to, quite simply. There certainly are federal grants available that we can more aggressively go after and train City Hall if need be to hunt down money outside of our own tax-created money. But one of the big problems in Jacksonville is, and we made 60 Minutes, yay! But it was all, once again, for the wrong reasons. Boo! One of the companies in Jacksonville that may or may not own the building that I now work in is buying up houses at an alarming pace. And they are then flipping those houses and keeping them for rent at an alarming rate. And I've dealt with, as I'm canvassing, I'm seeing other people that do this. And there's a point that, yes, that's free market. That should be protected. There's a point that that's predatory. And I'm not taking money from those folks. I'll go ahead and say that right now. The good news is I don't need it. But we absolutely have to protect. I mean, you can't unlink this from crime, folks. When somebody can't afford to pay their rent, when somebody can't afford, when they have food insecurity, when the Family Dollar is paying $7 an hour. What else are they gonna do? It's crime by need to some extent. So we have to find a way and incentivize good housing, right? Not slap them up housing, but incentivize good housing and raise the bar. And one thing, while I've been doing this and canvassing Ortega and canvassing, the east side, there's this new hope that I'm seeing that kind of follows along how we've built our firm and how we've renovated Folio, of people wanting to help each other. And if we could just energize that and create a spark, we're going to have people that's going to blow your mind painting people's houses that they don't know and caring about each other in this town. Because community ends with unity. It's almost a cliche at this point, but we've got to come together and we've got to fight for one another.
Well, the first thing that we should be doing is get a tenants' bill of rights passed by our city council, right? That's something that will help ensure that those that are living in these apartments that are not up to standards are able to break their lease, are able to leave on their own terms, that they're not trapped, that they're not being forced to pay more and more and more than they're supposed to. This is something that can be done tomorrow. And frankly, this is actually a recommendation that was in the critical quality of life committee hearings that happened this year. So if you're not familiar with critical quality of life hearings that occurred, over the past 6 to 7 months, City Council got together to look at 3 major topics: attainable or affordable housing, healthcare, and homelessness/houselessness. So I went to several of those meetings because I'm on the Changing Homelessness Continuum of Care Board, so I'm the vice chair of that. So I'm very concerned about homelessness and houselessness in the city, but obviously when it comes to affordable housing, that's a major piece to it, both in the homelessness sector, but also for our residents. Right? We have so many young people that are unable to purchase a home. Back in the 1950s, if you were 24 and you didn't own a home, it was ridiculous. You have Levittown's built everywhere. Anyone can own a home. Today, obviously, we are nowhere near where we were back then. Inventory is so low. And one of the best ways, also listed in the continuum of use, also listed in the critical quality of life committee recommendations, that we should have inclusionary zoning, which means we should change our zoning laws. Yes, that boring thing I mentioned earlier. We should change our zoning laws to ensure that several different corridors in the city, especially those where density should be at the highest, that we remove single home zoning, right? The moment we get rid of single home zoning in some of those critical areas, the more we can build up density, and we can look very similar to Riverside, Avondale, a place that has apartments that you can live in, a duplex, a quad, an apartment complex. Some of these places that are cheaper for developers to build, so they want to build them, and also it helps build the character of a real neighborhood. If we keep building more and more Nagatees or Wild Lights, and everyone's got a single family home, it's not only an inefficient use of the land, it also makes sure that a lot of those homes are unattainable for those to purchase who just got out of college, and also it will make sure that everyone kind of looks and sounds the same, and that's no neighborhood at all. That's one of the things I love about this part of our city, and frankly most of District 7. We have different types of housing, but we can always and must do more. We have the Rail Yard District, we have the Phoenix Art District, we have all these places where infill development and apartment complexes, with the help of the city, could be built. To the point I made earlier about rep grants, if we expand rep grants to other parts of the city and create real plans that can actually be executed, we could have so much more attainable and affordable housing all throughout the city so that people from all walks of life can afford to live here. And that's exactly what we should be doing in the city. We shouldn't be talking more about, oh yeah, we would like to do it. No, we can do it, and we can start with the tenants' bill of rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caluso. Ms. Pryor.
Affordable housing, it is basically a big part of it is supply and demand. If we have enough supply, then what's going to happen to the rents? We've got a low supply, and what happens to our rents now? They're going up. So we have programs in place right now where there are developments going on to build more affordable housing. We need to continue with that. Absolutely. We just recently passed, I believe they passed a bill to allow zoning changes so that people can build like mother-in-law suites or cottage apartments, garage apartments in their backyards. Well, Springfield's had that since inception. So sure, why not? Let's expand that to other areas. If my parents were here and became elderly, then I want them to be close to me, and if they wanted to live close to me, if I had a place available, then there you go. They can just move into my little cottage apartment behind my house, and then they have their own space too. So absolutely, we need to get more affordable units out there. We need to get them built. We need to get them built in a way that is sustainable. We need to get them built quality. We need quality. We don't need people to just go in and slap and throw them up in 2 weeks. I know that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. We need quality builds, something that's going to last for a long time, so that we're not coming back 10 years from now and tearing it down because it's not built right and doesn't last. So bottom line here is that let's get our units available up, and our rents should then come down. And I don't have all the answers. There's a lot of smart people in this room. What ideas do you have? Let's talk about that, because it's not just about being a city council person and having all the answers, because I don't have all the answers. If anybody says they do, then they're just lying. Nobody has all of the answers. If somebody had all the answers, we wouldn't have any problems, right? So that's where I'm at. Let's get our housing stock up so that our rents will then come down. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Mr. Hogan, same question to you.
All right, here we go. I'm a builder. I get that housing cost has skyrocketed in the last 5+ years. I bid jobs that have gone up 20-30% just over the course of a couple months, and it's great. It's hard to plan for. So one of the big cost drivers when you're building a structure, building a house, is the original cost. You get your land cost and your fees. Well, JPA recently just upped their fees by like 3 times. I got a buddy of mine building a quad that he was trying to have it as an affordable complex. He was budgeting for about 10 grand to have JPA tap everything in the structure. It ends up being it's like almost 70 grand a couple months later. You can't have affordable housing when you're starting off from that high of a level. So I think if we have a city that can work with developers as far as we can do some creative things. We can do some land grants. We've got plenty of land and buildings throughout the city that the city owns. Let's work with developers and give that land away and incentivize them to do something else, somewhere else. Let's work with JDA. Let's get some of those fees reduced or eliminated on some of these projects that we want to have specifically affordable housing. You'll get builders and developers to work with you if the city will work with them. I think it's an easy way that we can get affordable housing throughout the city.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. All right, one final question here, and we'll start with Mr. Peluso. We'll continue going down the line here. This is our closing question, so straightforward. At the end of your term in office, how's Jacksonville going to be a better place?
That's probably the toughest one, right? I mean, part of the things that I said that I wanted to do here tonight are going to cost money. And one of my biggest concerns with our city is we consistently try to go with the cheapest option. And when you go with the cheapest option, you get the cheapest result. And that's why we see so many problems here in Jacksonville. And it started right after consolidation, which was a measure to make things more cheap, to make sure everyone's taxes were low. Well, I'm here to say that policy has really hurt this city. We need to make sure that there are dedicated funding sources for a number of different priorities. If they really are priorities, I know they're mine. And if the city really wants to grow, we should have different major funding sources. Like I mentioned earlier, the Kids Hope Alliance should get its own directed funding source through a millage rate increase. And I think Parks should get a direct millage rate increase as well. The two of them, that way no future city council and no future mayor can take money away from them and sweep them like we see all the time in Tallahassee and all the time in prior administrations here in the city. We need to finally step up and say, these are our priorities in the city of Jacksonville. And if we get to that point, we will see that there will be massive changes in the years to come. There will be, because now we're going to have more money in our general fund to put towards other priorities, and we won't need to be worrying so much about things like, hey, what are our kids going to do during summer? Or hey, are we going to make sure that these parks are properly safe and well funded and well lit? That's a future that I'd be happy to be a part of, and that's something I'd love to see. Also, I'd like to see a rail system, but, you know, we didn't really talk about that tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Caluso. Ms. Farr, same question.
My last day in office. How is Jacksonville different? I would like to think that Jacksonville is different because they have now seen a council member who does what she says she's going to do and does what she says. So rebuild trust so that people can look back and say, she got that part fixed. She got the sidewalks put in. She got the street lights fixed after so many years. It's all about collaboration and partnership. So the people of District 7 deserve a leader who is honest and transparent and responsive. And I'm here to tell you that I am all of that because I truly care about this community and I want with everything I've got for it to be better because I know it can be better. We all have to work together because I can't do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. Gotta have help. So I believe that if we really put our heads together, work together, become partners, then we can move this city forward. We can move District 7 forward. And you know, District 7 is smack in the middle of the city. What's going to happen in the city of Jacksonville when District 7 moves forward? The rest of Jacksonville is going to follow. And so that's really what I would like to see on my last day, is that we have moved forward and we now have a little more confidence in the city leaders that have been elected. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Farr. Mr. Hogan?
Last day in office, you know, I've been in the Air National Guard for well over a decade now, and I look back from when I originally went in to where I am with that career now, vastly different. I had ideas and goals going into that, and just over the course of time, life changes. Decisions come before you that you weren't expecting, that you have to make a decision and your path changes. So I have an idea, I think we all have an idea of where we would like our city to be in 4 years, 8 years. We're here because we want a great city. We want to drive around and feel proud of our neighborhoods. We want our kids, our grandkids to be here and have opportunities to grow up in a wonderful city. I'm here because I think Jacksonville is that place. I think Jacksonville has extreme potential. I mean, I'm just looking around this room right now. It's a Monday night. Am I right? It's Monday night again.
For a few more hours.
But this room is crowded with people that are interested in hearing about their community. That's exciting. That makes me feel good. I would be an open ear. I would be a person that if you're going to get how I feel if we have a conversation. I'm not going to tell you one thing and then go down to City Hall and make a deal in the back room and make a vote differently. You get what you see with me, you know, the good and the bad. My Bible will tell you most of the bad, I'm sure. But no, I have a vision that I'd love to see the city excel and grow, and I think we have the potential. My name is Joseph Hogan, and I'd love to have your vote on March 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Mr. Phillips, finish us off.
Folks, if we elect the same people, we're going to get the same results. And I have a 20-plus year history in this town with doing things differently, with speaking truth to power, with telling the mayor no, that's not appropriate, with busting guys like Kit Sturman, with helping families who've lost everything, with a blind couple that couldn't even navigate how to get a marriage license and now there's signs all throughout the courthouse. With a dentist that defrauded us as taxpayers and now he's out of business. I'm unusual as a candidate, I'll admit it. But on December 29th and then December 30th, I looked left and I looked right. This is where I've worked for over 20 years, this district. This is where I've lived for over a decade. We lost our home in Irma. I know what that's like. I know the FEMA process. I worked with my neighbors to help them through. I know the people, like in Kennight, can't even get renters. Nobody has served the underserved more than me. But I've also served people who just needed a help with a problem, the stoplight incident. So I don't know that anybody is going to make a great change in 4 years at City Hall, right? That's asking a lot from one of 19 votes. But I will tell you this, as certain as I'm sitting here, I will bring compassion. I will bring love. And if needed, I'll bring a little bit of the other stuff, right? I'll speak truth to power. I'll bring action. I'm not afraid of the folks that don't want me there. I'm not going to be bought. I'm not going to be influenced by a suite in that guy's facility, right? I had teal fever as much as anybody, but at some point, we are here to help the city of Jacksonville. I think if we don't make a change over the next 4 years, we're going to continue divisiveness, we're going to continue inequality, we're going to continue do-nothing politics, and let the let the machine keep making sausage, and the city is too dang important.
All right, my turn to see how this thing works. Thank you guys for coming out, and thank you to all of our candidates who moved. One more round of applause. If you want to hear more from Murray Hill Preservation Association about events like this, you have a sign-in sheet up here.